I have kept quiet long enough, but what they did to Luka, that was personal.
For many months since the news of Luka Doncic's trade, fans thought Michael Jordan's silence meant he didn't care about the trade. But after that explosive statement, it's clear this runs deeper than basketball. What really happened behind the scenes that made the GOAT take it personally? The earthquake that shook the NBA. Around 10:30 p.m. on February 2025, ESPN insider Shams Charania dropped a bomb on social media that would send shockwaves rippling through every corner of the basketball universe. The Dallas Mavericks, the team that had just reached the NBA Finals less than a year earlier, were trading their franchise cornerstone, their generational superstar, their 25-year-old phenomenon Luka Dončić to the Los Angeles Lakers. This wasn't just any trade. This was the first mid-season swap of two reigning All-NBA players in the history of the league. A blockbuster deal so massive and so unexpected that it would be officially announced by the Dallas Mavericks the very next morning on Sunday, February 2nd, leaving fans, analysts, players, and even team executives absolutely stunned and scrambling to make sense of what had just transpired. The details of the trade itself were mind-boggling in their scope and complexity. This was a three-team deal involving the Lakers, Mavericks, and Utah Jazz, carefully orchestrated to navigate the intricate web of salary cap rules and future draft considerations that govern modern NBA transactions. The Los Angeles Lakers would receive the crown jewel of the deal, Luka Dončić himself, along with forward Maxi Kleber and veteran forward Markieff Morris, instantly transforming their roster and their championship aspirations in ways that seemed almost too good to be true. The Dallas Mavericks, in exchange, would receive Anthony Davis, the 31-year-old superstar, forward and center, along with guard Max Christie, and the Lakers' highly valuable 2029 first-round draft pick. And the Utah Jazz, playing the crucial role of facilitator in this massive transaction, would collect guard Jalen Hood-Schifino, along with the Mavericks' 2025 second-round pick and the Clippers' 2025 second-round pick, adding young assets to their rebuilding efforts. What made this deal even more remarkable was that Anthony Davis actually waived his $5.9 million trade kicker to make the salary cap mathematics work for Dallas, a move that would potentially allow him to recoup that money through a future extension in the tax-free state of Texas, a financial maneuver that added yet another layer of complexity and intrigue to an already unprecedented transaction. The strategic thinking was clear. The Lakers were betting their entire future on acquiring a 25-year-old superstar who could potentially lead their franchise for the next decade, while Dallas was pivoting to immediate defensive upgrades by pairing Davis with Kyrie Irving, Daniel Gafford, and the promising young center Derek Lively too. But here's what made this trade absolutely, utterly, completely shocking to everyone who follows the NBA. Nobody saw it coming. And I don't mean that in the typical, this was a surprise kind of way that we usually talk about trades. I mean that negotiations between Mavericks GM Nico Harrison and Lakers GM Rob Pelinka had been going on secretly for roughly a month, and they had kept it so tightly under wraps that even Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd had no idea this was happening until the very end. Think about that for a second. The head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, the man who worked with Luka Dončić every single day, who designed plays around him, who built his entire offensive system around his unique talents, was completely in the dark about the fact that his best player was about to be shipped across the country. That's how secretive this deal was, how carefully guarded the information remained, right up until the moment it exploded onto social media and changed everything. Luka Dončić himself, who had been sidelined since Christmas Day with a nagging calf injury that had kept him out of action, found out about the trade the same way millions of fans did, through breaking news alerts on his phone, scrolling through social media in disbelief as he watched his entire world turn upside down in real time. Anthony Davis, who was also sitting out the Lakers-Knicks game due to an abdominal strain, was similarly blindsided by the news, never having been given even a hint that his time with the purple and gold was about to come to such an abrupt and unexpected end. The timing of this announcement, late on a Saturday night in the dead of winter, during what should have been a routine weekend of NBA basketball, only amplified the shock value, making it feel almost surreal, like something out of a fever dream rather than actual reality. Some people literally thought it was a joke, with several players and fans initially assuming this had to be some kind of elaborate April Fool's prank that had somehow gotten mixed up and released 5 months too early. The trade came during a period of speculation and rumors, but most of the whispers in NBA circles had been focused on other players and other teams, with Luka Dončic's name rarely if ever coming up in serious trade discussion because everyone simply assumed he was complete completely, totally, absolutely untouchable. A franchise player you build around for the next 15 years, not someone you trade away when he's only 25 years old and coming off a finals appearance. The immediate reactions from around the league were nothing short of explosive, with current and former players taking to social media to express their utter disbelief and shock at what had just transpired. Tristan Thompson, the veteran center who has seen plenty of surprising moves during his long NBA career, immediately sensed that there had to be more to this story than what was being reported publicly, suggesting on social media that there must be some kind of deeper narrative or hidden reason that would eventually come to light. NFL superstar Patrick Mahomes, a known basketball fan who follows the NBA closely during his offseason, couldn't contain his shock and simply tweeted, "Wait, what?" Two words that somehow perfectly captured the confusion and disbelief that millions of people were feeling in that exact moment. Phoenix Suns all-star guard Devin Booker, who has battled against Luka Dončić countless times in heated Western Conference matchups, called the trade crazy and noted that Doncic had always seemed like an untouchable player who would spend his entire career in Dallas, much like Dirk Nowitzki had done before him. But perhaps the most telling reaction came from Kevin Durant, one of the NBA's biggest superstars and a player who understands the business of basketball as well as anyone. KD labeled the trade insane and issued what amounted to a warning to every player in the league, stating emphatically that if he can get traded, then anybody is up for grabs. A sobering reminder that in the modern NBA, loyalty and tenure mean less than they ever have before. And even the brightest young stars aren't immune to being moved if management decides it's time for a change. Even Phoenix Suns guard Bradley Beal initially thought the trade involved Luka Garza, the lesser-known player, highlighting just how absurd the idea of trading Luka Dončić seemed to everyone who heard the news, confirming that this deal had been kept so confidential that even the league office had no advance warning that one of the NBA's brightest stars was about to change teams. The legend who shouldn't have been traded. To truly understand why this trade sent such massive shockwaves through the basketball world, why fans protested outside the American Airlines Center in Dallas, why analysts called it potentially the most stunning trade in NBA history, why even the commissioner himself was caught off guard, we need to take a step back and really appreciate exactly who Luka Dončić is as a basketball player, what he's accomplished in his remarkably short career, and why the idea of trading him at just 25 years old seemed not just unlikely but downright inconceivable to anyone who understands the game of basketball. Luka Dončić isn't just a good player or even a great player. He's a generational talent, a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon who has already accomplished things that most NBA players can only dream about achieving over the course of entire Hall of Fame careers. When you look at his career statistics, you're looking at numbers that place him in conversations with the absolute greatest players who have ever touched a basketball. His career average of 28.6 points per game ranks third all-time in NBA history, trailing only two names that every basketball fan knows by heart, Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain, both of whom averaged 30.1 points per game over their careers. That's the kind of company Luka keeps, and he's achieved this level of production before even reaching what most experts consider a player's prime years. But scoring isn't even the full story of what makes Luka so special and so historically unique. He's one of only 3 players in the entire history of the NBA, spanning more than 75 years and thousands upon thousands of players, to average at least 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists per game over the course of their career. The other 2 players to accomplish this feat, LeBron James and Oscar Robertson, 2 names that are universally recognized as being among the greatest to ever play the game, 2 players whose legacies are secure in the pantheon of basketball immortality. To be more specific, Luka's career averages of 28.6 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 8.3 assists per game put him in a category so elite that you could count the number of players who belong there on one hand and still have fingers left over. The 2023-24 season, which preceded this shocking trade, was arguably Luka's masterpiece, a campaign that further cemented his status as not just one of the best players in the league today, but as someone building a resume that could eventually rival the all-time greats. He led the entire NBA in scoring with an astounding 33.9 points per game, while also contributing 9.8 assists and 9.2 rebounds per game, a statistical trifecta that demonstrated his ability to dominate every aspect of the game and impact winning in multiple ways. His incredible season earned him a third-place finish in the MVP voting, recognition from his peers and the media that he was operating at the absolute highest level the sport has to offer. And then there was January 26, 2024, a date that will forever be remembered in NBA history. That's when Luka Dončić absolutely exploded for 73 points against the Atlanta Hawks, tying for the fourth highest single-game scoring performance in the entire history of the NBA. Think about that for a moment. In over 75 years of professional basketball, through every era of the game, with all the legends and superstars who have ever laced up their sneakers, only 3 players have ever scored more points in a single game than Luka did on that magical night in January. That's not just impressive, that's legendary, kind of performance that defines careers and gets talked about for generations. At 6'8", with elite court vision, incredible ball handling skills, and what basketball people call killer instincts, Luka represents the modern evolution of the NBA superstar, a player who can do absolutely everything on the basketball court, who makes everyone around him better, and who possesses that rare combination of size, skill, and basketball IQ that simply cannot be taught or replicated. His impact goes far beyond just statistics and numbers on a page. His global appeal as a Slovenian player who conquered European basketball before dominating the NBA has made him one of the most marketable and recognizable athletes on the planet, with fans from every continent following his every move. This brings us to the 2024 NBA playoffs, where Luka Dončić put together one of the most remarkable postseason runs in recent memory, leading the Dallas Mavericks to their first NBA Finals appearance since their championship victory back in 2011. This wasn't just about getting to the finals, it was about how he got them there, the way he dominated series after series, the way he elevated his game when the stakes were at their absolute highest and the pressure was most intense. Teaming up with Kyrie Irving, another supremely talented guard with championship experience, Luka orchestrated what many called a Cinderella run through the Western Conference, dismantling opponents with a combination of brilliant playmaking, clutch scoring, and the kind of confidence that only the truly great players possess. His performance in the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Timberwolves earned him the Conference Finals MVP award, a well-deserved recognition for the way he completely took over that series and willed his team to victory. In the series-clinching Game 5, played on May 30th, 2024, Luka absolutely dominated with 36 points in a commanding 124-103 victory, effectively ending Minnesota's season and sending Dallas to the NBA Finals for the first time in over a decade. The building was electric, the crowd was deafening, and Luka was magnificent, the kind of performance that championship teams are built around and that franchises dream about having for years to come. In the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, which Dallas ultimately lost 4-1 to a historically great Boston team, Luka averaged 29.2 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 5.6 assists per game, numbers that would be considered excellent for almost any player in that situation. He was playing through multiple injuries, including issues with his knee and ankle that clearly hampered his mobility and explosiveness, yet he still found ways to impact the games and keep Dallas competitive against a Celtics team that was firing on all cylinders. His shooting performance in the finals included a 47.3% field goal percentage and 38% from three-point range. Solid numbers given the circumstances and the level of competition he was facing. There were criticisms, of course, particularly regarding his defensive effort and his true shooting percentage of 53%, which was lower than his usual standards. ESPN's Brian Windhorst notably commented that Luka hadn't yet fully grasped the kind of complete, all-encompassing accountability and two-way excellence that defined legends like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, pointing to moments where he complained to officials instead of getting back on defense, or instances where his body language suggested frustration rather than leadership. The fact that he fouled out of Game 3, leaving his team shorthanded during a crucial moment in a close game, became a flashpoint for critics who questioned his maturity and decision-making in the biggest moments. Looking at the complete playoff picture, Luka averaged 28.9 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 8.1 assists per game across the entire postseason, leading his team in virtually every meaningful statistical category and carrying them further than most experts had predicted before the playoffs began. He led the playoffs in total points with 635, total rebounds with 208, total assists with 178, total steals with 38, making him the first player in NBA history to lead the postseason in all 4 of those categories simultaneously, an unprecedented achievement that speaks to his versatility and his impact on every facet of the game. His playmaking was particularly spectacular, recording 9 touchdown passes, those long, perfect outlet passes that spark fast breaks and easy baskets during the playoffs, second only to Tyrese Halliburton in that category. He embraced Coach Jason Kidd's emphasis on pushing the pace and playing with tempo, transforming Dallas into the league's 7th fastest offense and creating easy scoring opportunities for his teammates through his vision and passing ability. practice sessions with assistants like God Shamgod, focusing on developing creative new moves and adding weapons to his already formidable arsenal, paid dividends throughout the playoff run as Luka consistently found new ways to beat defenses and create advantages for his team. Despite the defensive criticism, Luka actually held his finals opponents to just 40% shooting when they were guarded by him, including holding Jason Tatum 7 of 22 shooting and Jaylen Brown to 11 of 23, numbers that suggest his defensive effort was better than the narrative suggested. He ranked in the top 3 in defensive deflections during the playoffs, showing his activity and engagement on that end of the floor, even when dealing with lingering injuries that limited his lateral movement and quickness. Teammate Derek Lively, too, spoke about how the entire team built a defensive shell around Luka, understanding that his offensive burden was so massive that they needed to provide extra support on the defensive end. After the series ended, Luka reflected on the experience as a crucial learning opportunity, telling reporters, "I've got a lot of things to learn. This is my first NBA Finals." Words that suggested humility and growth mindset rather than making excuses or deflecting responsibility. He also expressed genuine pride in what the team accomplished, saying, "I'm proud of every guy. We did have a hell of a season," recognizing that reaching the finals was an achievement worth celebrating even if they fell short of the ultimate goal. With a young, promising core that included Lively, PJ Washington, and Daniel Gafford, along with Irving's continued optimism about their future together, the Mavericks seem positioned to make multiple finals runs over the coming years, building on the experience and chemistry they developed during their playoff journey. This is what made the trade so shocking. They weren't trading away a player who had failed or disappointed, but rather one who had led them to the precipice of championship glory at just 25 years old. The hidden truth behind the trade. So here we arrive at the question that has dominated every sports talk show, every social media debate, and every conversation among NBA fans since that shocking Saturday night in February. Why would the Dallas Mavericks trade away a 25-year-old generational superstar who had just led them to the NBA Finals, who was entering what should be the prime years of his career, and who seemed destined to be the face of their franchise for the next decade or more? What could possibly justify such a radical, franchise-altering decision that left even the NBA commissioner surprised and fans protesting in the streets? Let's start with what became perhaps the most discussed and debated issue surrounding Luka Dončić during his time in Dallas: his conditioning and weight management. Reports indicated that Luka's weight had climbed to the high 260-pound range, a number that raised serious red flags for a player who relies so heavily on his mobility, quickness, and ability to play long stretches of minutes at an elite level. This wasn't just about vanity or appearance. The conditioning issues were directly contributing to a cascade of injuries that limited his availability and effectiveness. He suffered from recurring calf strains that would plague him throughout the season, along with a wrist sprain that further complicated matters. And these injuries weren't just minor inconveniences, they were serious problems that kept him off the court for extended periods. The impact was stark and undeniable. During the 2024-25 season leading up to the trade, Luka had appeared in just 22 games, averaging 28.1 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 7.8 assists, numbers that were still elite by any measure. But the limited availability was becoming a major concern for a franchise that needed their superstar on the court, not in the training room. The pattern was troubling. Despite his incredible talent and production when healthy, Luka's body seemed to be breaking down more frequently, and there were legitimate questions about whether this trend would continue or even accelerate as he got older and accumulated more wear and tear on his body. Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison was facing a crucial decision point in the franchise's trajectory, and his vision centered around building a defensive identity that could compete for championships in the modern NBA. While Luka was unquestionably brilliant on the offensive end, one of the most creative and productive scorers and playmakers the league has ever seen, his defensive limitations were well documented and had become a focal point during the finals loss to Boston. Harrison and the Mavericks Brain Trust concluded that acquiring Anthony Davis, whom Harrison described as a unique unicorn, capable of elite two-way play that could anchor both ends of the floor, would give them a better foundation for sustained championship contention than continuing to build around Luka's offensive brilliance while struggling to hide his defensive weaknesses. The timing of the trade was also influenced by financial and contractual considerations that added urgency to the decision. Luka Dončić Doncic was approaching eligibility for a Supermax contract extension worth approximately $345 million, a commitment that would have locked the Mavericks into building around him for the better part of the next decade while consuming a massive portion of their salary cap space. If they were going to have second thoughts about Luka as their long-term franchise centerpiece, whether due to conditioning concerns, defensive limitations, or philosophical differences about team building, this was the moment to act before that Supermax extension kicked in and made any future trades virtually impossible due to the sheer size of the contract. Harrison explicitly stated that he wanted to avoid what he called a tumultuous summer regarding Luka's Supermax eligibility, suggesting that there may have been behind-the-scenes tensions or disagreements about the terms of such an extension, or perhaps concerns about Luka's potential opt-out clause in 2026 that could have left the franchise in limbo. By trading him now, Dallas could reset their trajectory, bring in a proven championship-caliber player in Anthony Davis, and build a more balanced roster around him and Kyrie Irving without being hamstrung by a Supermax contract to a player whose conditioning and defensive effort remained question marks. The reaction from former Mavericks owner Mark Cuban was particularly revealing and showed that this decision wasn't universally supported even within the organization's power structure.
Well, I was in Florida and I get a text. It was from our general manager, and I thought he was asking me what I thought. And then I realized very quickly he was telling me what happened. And I told him I didn't agree with it, but it wasn't my decision to make.
Making it clear that if he still had majority ownership, this trade would never have happened.
I love Luka. We weren't best buddies, but I would text him all the time and DM him and got along great with his dad. I was just as dumbfounded as everybody else.
Providing a window into the personal relationships and connections that made this trade so painful for those who had watched Luka grow and develop in Dallas. The fact that Cuban had recently sold majority control of the team to Patrick Dumont added another layer of intrigue. Some conspiracy theorists even wondered if there was some kind of behind-the-scenes agreement or pressure from the league to facilitate Luka's move to the massive Los Angeles market. For Luka Dončić himself, the trade represented a seismic shift in his career trajectory and personal life. In his initial response, he expressed shock at the suddenness of the move, but also demonstrated remarkable maturity by quickly pivoting to acceptance and forward thinking. Rather than dwelling on the disappointment or feeling bitter about being traded by the only NBA team he'd ever known, Luka chose to embrace the opportunity and challenge that came with joining the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most storied and prestigious franchises in all of professional sports.
I feel like for me it's like a fresh start, a fresh mind. Last year was obviously a lot tougher, but it's a fresh mind for me, fresh start. Like I say, after the season ended, I knew I'm gonna be in better place once the season starts, so I was excited.
Acknowledging that the circumstances of his final months in Dallas had been challenging, but expressing genuine excitement about beginning a new chapter in his career with a clean slate and renewed purpose.
I mean, that meant a lot, Obviously, it's not a short flight, so that meant a lot, just for them to come to support me there, which they didn't have to do, but they did it, so I was really happy to see him.
Referring to Lakers executives Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss, Linda Ramby, and Kurt Ramby's flying overseas to watch him represent Slovenia, a gesture that clearly meant the world to him and helped ease the transition to his new team.
I mean, I always looked up to LeBron, so just last season coming here, I was excited to play with LeBron. At the end of the day, everybody want to play with LeBron, so I was really excited. You can learn so much from him, off court, on court, so I'm excited to keep doing that.
Revealing that the chance to team up with one of the greatest players in basketball history was something he viewed as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that could accelerate his development and championship prospects. And yet, even as Luka embraced his new reality in Los Angeles, there remained an undercurrent of curiosity and speculation about the full story behind the trade, acknowledging the human cost of a transaction that, while making sense from certain business perspectives, had clearly taken an emotional toll on a young player who had given everything to the Dallas franchise. The ramifications of this trade extend far beyond just two teams swapping star players. The Lakers saw their championship odds skyrocket from 41 long shots to 16-1 favorites almost overnight, with odds makers and analysts recognizing that adding a 25-year-old superstar to play alongside LeBron James fundamentally altered the balance of power in the Western Conference and the NBA as a whole. For Dallas, the gamble on Anthony Davis, a supremely talented but injury-prone player who would be 32 years old by the time the next season started, represented a huge risk that could either pay off with a championship or blow up spectacularly and leave the franchise in ruins. Mavericks fans protested outside the American Airlines Center, chanting against general manager Nico Harrison and expressing their fury at the decision to trade away their beloved franchise player. The anger was real, the sense of betrayal was palpable, and the questions about whether this was the right move will likely persist for years to come. Critics have already begun labeling it a potential historic blunder, comparing it to other infamous trades where teams gave up on young superstars too early and lived to regret it for decades afterward. Yet Harrison remained steadfast in his defense of the trade, characterizing it as a proactive move that gave Dallas a better chance to compete for championships with a more balanced, defensively oriented roster built around Anthony Davis's two-way excellence. The pairing of Davis with Kyrie Irving, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively II did create intriguing possibilities on paper, particularly on the defensive end where Dallas had struggled during their finals run. The question was whether Davis could stay healthy enough and whether Kyrie could provide enough offensive firepower to justify trading away a generational offensive talent like Luka Dončić. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.